Always Mine by SamadiW. Chapter 3. A few weeks later. Quidditch season was upon them, and the whole school was in an absolute uproar. Hermione hardly saw Ginny, Harry, Ron, and Malfoy since they were practicing non-stop for the upcoming matches. Why she added Malfoy to the list was beyond her. It was probably because they lived together and she was getting used to seeing the twat daily. He usually scowled when he saw her, and she had gotten extremely talented at ignoring him. The competition was fierce, and her work was cut out for her. Many fights broke out among the houses in anticipation of the upcoming matches. Quidditch was always such a big deal, but as far as Hermione was concerned, it was blown way out of proportions. Besides, she hated flying and never stepped foot on a bloody broom. In her world, rooms were for sweeping and not flying about the place at breakneck speed. She sat in her dorm with a cup of tea and a book on her lap. As the cheers erupted once again from the stadium, it looked like Malfoy had caught a snitch, sealing a Slytherin win. Hermione could not help but think that Malfoy was the best seeker in school next to Harry. She had seen him practice a few nights ago while taking a late-night stroll, and couldn't help but admire his dedication. He certainly looked sexy in his Quidditch robes. She was, yet again, picturing his taut muscles and firm body. The fact that she disliked him didn't change the fact that Malfoy was a good-looking fellow. Covering her head with the book she was reading, Hermione slid down the seat. She only took an active interest in Quidditch if it involved her house or Harry, Ginny, and Ron, but beyond that she was just not bothered. Her friends were at the current match, apparently studying the competition, Harry confided in her. As long as Harry was captain and seeker, Gryffindor would win. He had forgotten it last time Gryffindor lost the match. Harry and Ginny were bloody brilliant, and Ron was a decent keeper. Hermione thought back fondly to Ron's keeper tryout. He had been so nervous. Cormac McLaggen also tried out for the team, sending Ron's already bundled nerves into overdrive. To be fair, Cormac was the better keeper, but his attitude had been bloody awful, and for once Hermione had done the worst and used magic to cheat. Placing a Confundus charm on the arrogant Gryffindor that had been fairly easy, Cormac had no idea what hit him when he missed the last goal. Ron made the team, and everyone was happy. Reluctantly, she also remembered the brief fling with Cormac and frowned at her awful lack of judgment. He was a good-looking bloke and conceited arsehole to boot. He lost interest fast. Completely immersed in her daydreaming and listening to the cheering from the Quidditch pitch, she nearly jumped out of her skin at the loud bang of the door closing. Draco was caked in mud, his hair plastered to his head, and his Quidditch robes were drenched with water, but there was something else. Hermione's eyes travelled with him while he hurriedly walked around the common room, desperately searching for something. Blood! She gasped at the realization. What had happened? It seemed to be serious. Quickly getting up, she went up to him and tried to speak. Urgently, he opened the cupboards in their small kitchen and cursed out loud when he failed to locate whatever he was looking for. "Malfoy, you're bleeding!" Hermione exclaimed in shock. Draco gave her an exhausted look and said sarcastically, "Well done, Granger. They don't call you the brightest witch of your age for nothing." He looked paler than usual and utterly exhausted. Staggering, he held onto the counter with one hand to steady himself, while he held onto his side and groaned loudly with the other. The caring good witch in Hermione went out to the man before her. She approached him again, and he almost collapsed onto her. He was too large to manage, so she muttered a spell and hurried to him with her wand. She put her arm around his waist and helped him gently to the couch. Draco held onto his side, and the blood dripped through his fingers onto the couch. Hermione looked at him in alarm and said hurriedly, "I'm going to get Madame Pomfrey." Draco held onto her wrist with his long fingers, encircling it easily. "No, just help me clean the wound, Granger. It's just a scratch." Oh, she highly doubted that. He was bleeding all over the sofa. She returned to his side and bent down to assess the damaged area. Took off his Quidditch robes and t-shirt. She watched his bare body and swallowed hard. His muscles convulsed with the wound at his side. Stupid bloody Quidditch. Hermione gently took Draco's gloved hand off the bloody mess to see the extent of his injury and sighed in relief. He was right. It was not that bad. She could easily fix it. Rushing into her room, she grabbed a bottle of dittany that she always kept handy just in case. Having friends like Harry and Ron taught her to always be prepared. Draco groaned in pain as she hurried up to him. She rolled her eyes. The big, blooming baby. Taking his hand off the wound again, she gingerly placed her palm on one side and held the wound open with her small fingers to apply the dittany. Fingers trembled as they came into contact with his skin, and he groaned. Hermione looked concerned. "Careful, Granger. I might actually think you care." He teased and winced in pain. Closing his eyes, he took in and enjoyed her soft hands touching him. He was overly careful, but her gentle caresses sent wrong signals through his bruised body. The open wound magically began healing, and his breathing returned to normal. He took a deep breath, stood up, and moved his arm from side to side. He flexed his muscles and eyed the cut. The opening was now a thin, dry, red scar. Draco smirked. "Thank you, Granger," and added sarcastically, "You are useful at times." Hermione threw him a look of disgust. "A simple thank you will suffice, Malfoy." "How about a kiss?" he asked eagerly, but she stepped back hurriedly and almost tripped over the couch in her haste to get away from him. Letting out a laugh, Draco jogged into his room and closed the door. Hermione took out her wand with trembling fingers and nervously cleaned the bloody mess he left in his wake. Once inside his room, Draco ran his fingers along the healed wound, and a smile touched his lips. Granger was a good person and a damn talented witch. She was better than most people he had ever met. Alyssa knew she didn't need to be nice to him, but still, she was, and he appreciated it. He had to admire her skills as a witch. She was something else, and when she touched him, he groaned aloud. Her fingers were so bloody soft, thank Merlin, she thought it was out of pain. Draco cleared his head and thought back to the map. He always felt his best up there on his broom, and besides Potter, no one else came close to his seeking skills. Bitterly, he thought about how Potter managed to beat him every single time, and as Slytherin captain, it pissed him off. Just once, he wanted to fucking beat the Chosen One. His mouth twisted. He owed the Ravenclaw beater a vote of thanks for his injury. He'd take care of it tomorrow. To be continued. Thank you for listening to this chapter of Always Mine by SamadiW. If you'd like to stay up to date on upcoming chapters and stories, you can follow me on YouTube, Spotify, or AO3.